Good afternoon and welcome to the Veterans Forum. Today, the 24th of July, the year 2007, we're here at the studios of Pittsfield Community Television to present another Veterans program for you. Today, we have a very good old friend, Dick Stockwell, and we're starting to go right now. Dick, for the record, your full name, please, and spell your last name so we don't butcher it.
Okay. Richard S. Stockwell. S-T-O-C-K-W-E-L-L.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What were your service dates, active dates, and what branch of the service?
My active dates, August 31st, 1962 to October 15th, 1966, United States Marine Corps.
I kind of figured that. Thank you, sir. Now, to kind of build a little bit, could you go back a bit and tell us where were you born and when?
I was born in Milford, Massachusetts, September 4th, 1943. I was raised in the town of Upton, which is next door to Milford. It's just a very small town, like the size of Dalton. I grew up on a dairy farm all through high school and until I left for the service.
Good. Now, before getting into the service, what were you in school, working, or what was the background?
Well, we were milking 200 cows, and we had a dairy. It was my grandfather's, and my father and mother and my brother and two sisters grew up on the farm. We had a home there, and I went to Nipmunk Regional High School, which was a new high school between Mendon and Upton, and played sports, football, basketball, baseball, and worked on the farm after school, after practice, and on weekends.
Good. You're kind of busy then, huh?
Yes, my father kept us out of trouble.
Yeah, well, thank goodness for some things. Okay, when did you enter the Marine Corps, and when and where and how?
Well, I entered by mistake, really. I had been accepted to the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. My father was an alumni of that school and really pushed me to
get in there,
to go to UMass. So I had two real close buddies that in high school that we played ball together and we hung out together, and we were kind of like the Three Musketeers. We were inseparable. And one day we were hanging out in Milford, and one of my buddies his intention was to enlist into the Marine Corps. So my other buddy, we were with him, and we went down to the recruiting office with him, and when we had left, all three of us had joined.
Oh, did you know it, or did you just get snookered?
Oh, no. We did it voluntarily, and I came home a couple days later to tell my mother and father that I had joined the Marine Corps. It wasn't a very pleasant couple of weeks after that.
Oh.
My father was not really disappointed, but he really wanted me to go to school. But everything worked out for the best.
Good. You're alive and well. That's the best part about it. Right. Now, when you went in, where were you in boot? Down PI?
Well, yeah, I went to Paris Island. The three of us went in the buddy system. And we took a train on the 30th of August out of Boston. And it was a long haul down to South Carolina. And we went to a town called Yamasee. That's where the depot was that we got off. And there's an old expression in the Marine Corps, if you went to Paris Island, everybody would know it. You know, beautiful Beaufort by the sea, 26 miles from Yamasee. And that the buses with the drill instructors would be there to pick you up in Yamasee. And the ride to Beaufort, you have to go through the center of Beaufort, South Carolina, to go across the bridge to Paris Island. And it was a very long ride.
When you went through, did they give you the greeting? You'll be sorry.
They did more than give us the greeting.
I see, okay. Now, in boots, anything particular that stands out like your first couple of days? Did you have trouble getting acclimated, as they call it?
Well, I was scared. I think everybody was scared the first couple of days at boot camp. You know, you see things on television. You know, they shaved our heads. You know, they were in your face. It was a rude awakening. It was nothing that I knew it was going to be tough, but it was tough.
Well, were the DIs any better then than they were supposedly in World War II, where they just about pull you apart?
No, I think they were. I guess after the 1956 situation with Sergeant McKeon, where the recruits drowned, things were turned around a little bit, and I think it was a little bit more humane, you know, than it was back in the 40s and 50s.
Because well, we won't go there.
Yeah.
Now, you said you were in all kinds of sports. Did that help you out during your, if you will, indoctrination training, the marching and the climbing and all that good stuff?
Yeah, because I was in pretty good shape. The three of us, when we went down there, we were in pretty good shape. And, you know, you ran and ran and ran and then you ran. Yeah. And their policy was to break you down the first 2 weeks that you were there and then rebuild you in their eyes. Yeah. And that's what they did.
And it works.
And it works.
Surprisingly, in retrospect, it really works.
Absolutely.
Right. So when some guy said squat, you didn't ask where, you just down you went. Okay.
Exactly.
Now, any special things happen, or outstanding or real funny, or made you wonder about things in camp?
Well, I never shot a rifle until I went there. That was kind of a new thing for me. My father, we were not hunters. He didn't believe in killing animals for sport. Yeah. And so that's the way I was brought up. So there was never a firearm. He was a part-time police officer in a small town, and he had a revolver, but we had no firearms in our house. And so after you get into the routine of Parris Island, I think that one of my biggest obstacles was the firing range, because I knew nothing about firearms at all. And as any former Marines listening to this know, that before you leave Parris Island, you had to break down your M14 or M16, whatever you were using at the time, be able to take it down and put it back together blindfolded, which I was able to do. Good. Before you have to do that before you leave.
Now, did you have any time qualifying? Any problems?
No, I qualified. I was a sharpshooter, which is, you have expert sharpshooter and marksman, and I became a sharpshooter. I did not have I did not qualify with the 45. What I was doing, it wasn't a qualification that I had to. But each year in the Marine Corps, you have to qualify with either the 14 or the 16.
Okay. Now, had you gotten any assignment with respect to what would be your MOS or your specific training? What were you trying to do?
That was kind of ironic. After I left Parris Island, my father and mother and brothers and sisters came to Parris Island to see me graduate.
That's fun.
And they drove all the way. They drove straight through down to South Carolina, and it was good to see them. And then from there, I went to what they call ITR, infantry training at Camp Geiger, which is part of Camp Lejeune, which is everybody goes through infantry training.
That's an automatic.
That's an automatic. That's another 3 weeks that basically you're taking the basics, what you were taught in basic training, and now they're putting military situations in front of you, obstacles. You're throwing grenades. You're crawling under barbed wire, live fire, things of that nature. You're out at night. They're taking you out and dropping you off, and you got to find your way back. And playing war games and things of that nature. So we did that for 3 weeks, and then after that, I was told I was coming back to Camp Lejeune to join the 10th Marines. and that I would be going to cooking school, which was kind of a surprise to me. And my other buddy was going to the motor pool, and my other buddy went to C school. So we all kind of spread out after that and went home, come back, and spent a month and a half at Lejeune as what they call a cook striker, and went into the 10th Marines, and I wasn't very happy because I was kind of gung ho, and I didn't join the Marines to be a cook.
Pot walloper, huh?
Yeah, and they said, "Don't worry, you'll have your
day."
Your day. So, 6 months after I was in the in the 10th Marines, our outfit moved out and we went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, in July, August of '63. And we went down on an LST out of Morehead City, North Carolina, our whole outfit. I was assigned to an artillery outfit. And so if you were in a situation, if you were on maneuvers and things and you were eating C rations, cooks didn't cook. I come to find that out real fast.
Good man.
You're lugging armor,
Yeah.
or you're doing what they say. Your first job in the Marine Corps is a rifleman.
Rifleman, right.
So, and that's a very true statement. No matter what you do, whether you're a radio man, whether you're an office pokey, whatever you're doing, your first job is a rifleman. So I think one of the most things that have stuck with me all my life is that while I was in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, on November 22nd, 1963, of course we were on a naval base. Guantanamo Bay is a naval base. And we got a call over the loudspeaker, General Quarters, General Quarters. And this is not a drill. Those are words you do not want to hear.
Amen.
So we all had foxholes to go to. I guess if you've seen A Few Good Men with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise, it was about the fence line in Cuba. And so we all had foxholes to go to and grabbed our flak jackets and helmets, and we didn't understand what was going on. And then the announcement was that the president had been assassinated. And they thought that the Cubans had something to do with his assassination.
You're talking about Kennedy.
Kennedy, right. I was in Guantanamo Bay when Kennedy was assassinated. And we thought the Cubans were coming over the fence.
Oh.
Well, we really didn't know what was going on because the president our commander-in-chief had just been killed.
Yep.
And so there was a lot of tense moments for 3-4 days in Gitmo. And wasn't much cooking being done then.
No, but a lot of keeping it low.
Yes. So then that was in November. December 28th, they flew us home. And we arrived at Camp Lejeune. And I would think there was 520 of us that were in the 10th Marines at the time. And as they were trying to get us home for New Year's, First Sergeant said, "Let everybody go except for me," and said that, "You're not coming back. We have orders for you." And I said, "Top, I don't know why aren't I staying with the outfit? Where am I going?" He said, "You've been assigned to headquarters Marine Corps in Washington, D.C.
Ooh.
At Arlington, Virginia, Henderson Hall." And he says, "I don't know who you know, but..."
You're cooking for the brass.
So I went home, came back to Washington, D.C., and checked in. And at Henderson Hall, we had the school for the guards at the embassies. All the embassies throughout the world are guarded by Marines. And before the Marines go to their assigned embassies, they go to a month-and-a-half school at Henderson Hall. And our guard detail at Henderson Hall supplied the Marine guards at the Pentagon. In fact, our barracks overlooked the Pentagon, and I could look out the window near my bunk and look at Arlington National Cemetery. We were right there. And I was there for 2 years. Great duty. It was absolutely great duty. I had met the Commandant of the Marine Corps on the Marine Corps birthday a couple times. He spent his time at Henderson Hall at the Marine Corps birthday, and met a lot of great people while I was in Washington.
Great.
And then my time in Washington was coming up, and there was a push for, I had made corporal, and there was a push for NCOs to go to Vietnam. There were a shortage of Marines, and there were a lot of young Marines coming in. So I volunteered in April of '65 to go to Vietnam, and I finished out the next 4 or 5 weeks there, and went home on leave for 30 days. And of course, my parents weren't very happy that I was going to Vietnam. And one ironic story before I tell you about my Vietnam experiences was that my brother was in the 8th grade when I left in 1965 to go to Vietnam. And I can remember my mother saying, well, if you have to go, at least your brother won't have to go. And my brother went to Vietnam in 1972. So that just shows you how long we were over there. He was in the 8th grade when I went. And
did you ever meet?
No. I had come home and got out before he went in the service. Yeah, he's 8 or 9 years younger than I am. But I think as I said, I come from a very small town, and our family's pretty large in the town. My mother had a lot of brothers and sisters and their families. I was the second serviceman to go to Vietnam from my hometown. And the first serviceman, Lieutenant Richard Rand, was in my class in high school, and we were friends. And he got killed in Vietnam. So it was a little difficult for the town.
Yeah, it's bound to be.
To send their second son to Vietnam, but everything worked out. We come back but I went to Vietnam. Well, I went to Okinawa first. We were in training. I would say 3 or 4 weeks, Bob. We were in Okinawa. One, to get us accustomed to the heat, because basically it was the same
latitude or longitude, whatever.
Yeah, and we went through all kinds of military exercises while we were in Okinawa. Well, we went to Pendleton first, and we were there for a couple of weeks, and then on to Okinawa, and we were there for 3 weeks. And then I was assigned to the 9th Marines, striking 9th Marines, and we were going to go by boat, and I was kind of dreading going across the Pacific, because when you ride with the Navy, you're on the bottom of the bunks. They don't give you the best quarters in the world. I knew that going to Guantanamo Bay, but they needed us right away, so they flew us. Yep. And we got on the plane. We flew to Guam, and we were in Guam for a little while. And then we didn't know exactly where in Nam we were going. And then they told us when we got on the plane in Guam that we would be landing in Da Nang, which was hot.
Amen.
So, but we were coming in. They would have fighters escorting us into the airfield in Da Nang, and we the next morning left, and we were landing in Da Nang, and we had no idea what we were going to expect or anything, and we didn't take any fire at all going in, and when we landed, we got out, and they had a staging area for us to go, and what we did is, at this time, we were supplying security around the airfield in Da Nang, so our planes could get in and out. Because what was happening was there was a lot of snipers, and there was a lot of mortars being tossed onto the tarmac, and it was small arm fire. There was small arm fire to the planes and helicopters, but basically they were trying to ruin the tarmac so the planes couldn't land. So we had set up camp, and I was in regimental headquarters, and I was fortunate to be assigned to the staff of the commanding officer of the regiment. And his name was Colonel Edmund Simmons, and he was a great man. And his executive officer was a lieutenant colonel by the name of Colonel Trumbull. And there's a really good story there that I hope we can get to.
You got the mic, buddy.
Well, Colonel Simmons, I was on his staff while I was there, and when I got there, we got checked in, and they were assigning people to different situations, and they found out that I had been in Washington at headquarters, Marine Corps. They said, "You're just what we're looking for." The colonel's staff, I'll be assigned to Colonel Simmons, and so Colonel Simmons had a radio operator. He had me. He had another aide. He had he had a first lieutenant, and he had somebody else. There was 5 of us, and he had a bodyguard. Wherever he went, we went with him.
You were there.
If he went in a helicopter into combat to see what outside the troops, we went with him. You know, no matter wherever the colonel went, the 5 of us would go with him. So I wouldn't say that I got to be friends with him, but I got to know him, and he got to know me. And he was there for 6 months as our commanding officer, and he made the rank of Brigadier General.
Good deal.
And which meant that he was a commanding officer of a regiment, which is a job for a full bird colonel. So with that, he left Vietnam after he made his star and went back to Washington, and he taught at the War College. Mm-hmm. And from there, he retired, and he was a very, very intelligent man. He went to Annapolis. He became the historian for the Marine Corps.
Beautiful.
And he's written 2 or 3 books that I have. And I have 1 autographed from him. And we still have remained in communication.
Good.
For the past 30 years. Now, emails here and once there. He's not in good health now. He's a man in his 80s, and he's not good in good health. But the man who was his executive officer his name was Colonel Bull Trumbull, and he was a Marine's Marine. He was what they call a Mustang.
Yeah.
And a Mustang is somebody who was an enlisted man.
Up the ranks.
And he got a field commission, and he had been in the Marine Corps for 30-something years. And usually the top rank that a Mustang can reach is a lieutenant colonel. Yeah. Sometimes it'll go to major and become a lieutenant colonel, but that's as far as any Mustang.
The ceiling is right there.
The ceiling is right there.
And he used to wear 245s on both sides. He was a character. But, I mean, anybody would follow this guy any place.
Yep.
He was that type of, where Colonel Simmons was a very studious, very logistical, planned it, where Colonel Trumbull was an exact opposite, and they were good together because the guy was going to knock the door down and go.
Yeah.
And the day that he was a senior lieutenant colonel, so he took over till they brought another colonel in, and then one day there was a full bird came in who was from Da Nang and had eagles for Colonel Trumbull. He was one of the few enlisted men who got a field commission who became a full bird colonel.
Beautiful.
And
beautiful.
The guy had tears in his eyes.
Do you blame him?
And, no, I don't. And he was a great guy. And I later, after I got out of the service, I later met Colonel Trumbull. He invited me. I had contacted him when I went back to Washington, and he invited me to Quantico for lunch.
Wow.
And I ate in the officers' mess in Quantico. It was a great day, and he introduced me to everybody that was there, and it was one of the highlights of my tenure in the Marine Corps.
Question.
Yep.
Was the chow there as good as the stuff you served?
Better.
It always seems to be.
Well, I think that the purveyors had more to work with.
Yeah.
We used to, when I did any cooking for the colonel and his staff, we'd have to go down into Da Nang and kind of borrow it from the Air Force. Mm-hmm. Because we weren't, I mean, when you were a cook and you're in combat, you're not cooking. I mean, we're eating sea rations, and, we'd go back to have a hot meal, but we'd go into the headquarters thing. And so when he would have a staff meeting or something, and he would say to me, Stockwell, do you think you could round something up?
Yeah.
And I'd say, yes, sir. And I'd take his driver, and I would go down to the Air Force base. And
you found all this stuff laying around
There were
loose.
thing that they were glad to give us.
Yeah. As long as they weren't looking.
As long as they weren't looking.
Can we change gears a bit?
Sure.
I'd like to get back to what were you doing when you were over there? Did you go out in the bush at all? Or were you
Yeah.
stateside?
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to find out.
We did. Yeah. Everybody had to take their shot at patrols.
Okay.
And I was really good friends with this Marine. We kind of were bunk mates. There was 4 of us in this tent that we were living in tents over there.
Okay.
And so he became a New York police officer after that. But one night we got hit pretty hard, and we were heading for our bunker, and he got shrapnel. He was probably from a little further from me to you, and he got hit with a mortar that was coming in, and he got shrapnel in his leg. And so I had called for a medic,
Yeah.
and we did some first aid on him. And I went, so there was kind of a bond between us, and I went to his wedding in New York.
Oh, brother.
And had a great time, and he introduced me to everybody that everybody knew who I was when I came in, and
Made you feel good too.
Yeah, it did. And we still get Christmas cards back and
Good.
forth.
Yeah.
And
You ever get to visit though, once in a while?
we haven't now. Probably, I would say I haven't seen him in 15 or 20 years.
Oh.
But we, once in a while the phone will ring, or vice versa. He's got diabetes pretty bad now, and he got off the job, and so it's one of these things you say I should go down and see him, or we should get together, but the way time you just don't do it.
I know.
And someday I'll be sorry that I didn't.
Then that big word if only I'd known. Yeah.
Absolutely, Bob.
Yeah.
But
Now, when you were out in the bush, is there anything that you feel you'd like to share with us or tell us about as far as who went where and how you did, what you had to look out for, and how you were treated? How you protect each other's rear end?
Well, one of the problems, and a lot of guys that were in Nam will tell you, one of the worst things in Nam was the weather, was the heat, the monsoons. I mean, when the monsoons came, I mean, it was like we get a downpour here for an hour or so. It's like that for a week.
Ooh.
And you're never dry. And then in the afternoon it gets to 100, 110 degrees, and it stops raining, and then and all you can smell is rotten canvas. And but the jungles were so difficult out there, and a lot of the guys got hurt with what they call punji sticks.
Yeah.
And you had to be careful. There was a lot of booby traps, and a lot of our guys, most of the injuries in our outfit were not wounds by bullets.
Bullets, yeah.
Most of them were either booby traps, punji sticks, or shrapnel from mortars. That's basically all the guys that got wounds. And you didn't know who the enemy was when you walked into a village.
That's the bad part.
No, they didn't wear uniforms.
I know.
And we had gone into an operation called County Fair, which is how I got that. And that was after we had been in Da Nang. We had turned over our perimeter to the Big Red One, the army, and we moved out. And our outfit took Hill 55, and it was like probably a week till we got it secured. And on the base of Hill 55, there was a large village, and we had to go through the village because there were tunnels under the huts, and these people, the South Vietnamese people were so afraid. I mean, they couldn't tell us because, they were afraid of us, but they were more afraid of the Viet Cong because
they'd come back and get them.
They'd come back and get them. So we had to remove all the people that we thought that were the villagers out of there and go through the whole village. And
did it have to torch anything like that?
There were a couple homes that were napalmed because they found tunnels that were underneath, and so they did what they had to do.
You ever think it'd be volunteering to become a tunnel rat?
No, there is no way.
No way.
That I'm
no
going
Jose.
There's no way that I'm. And there are guys that will go into these tunnels.
I know.
And I have all the respect for those guys in the world, but I mean, there were two things that I didn't want to do in the Marine Corps. One was jump out of a plane with a parachute, and two, go under the ground into a tunnel.
Yeah, it's even worse if you jump out without a parachute.
Yeah, I know.
You'll bet.
But it was the living conditions, because like we were the first Marines really to land in Da Nang in 1965. And the living conditions were poor. Yeah. I mean, I never had a fresh glass of milk until I went for 6 or 8 months until I went to Hong Kong on R&R. We were drinking powdered milk.
Yeah.
And, we were eating mostly sea rations. I went over like 202 and come back 167 pounds.
Ooh.
And
so it wasn't a pleasure trip?
No, it wasn't. There was a lot of stress amongst a lot of the Marines over there because it was you were fighting the unknown, and there were, as everybody tells you, there was restrictions put on you. You went on patrol. Don't shoot unless you're shot at.
Yeah.
There was there was a lot of politics involved, and it was frustrating from the top on down.
Yeah, it's bound to be. Can we change gears for a minute? I'd like
Sure.
to. What I'd like to do, I'll hold this up, and
Sure.
I admire the heck out of this. And would you give us a quick run through as to what and how?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Let me see if I get it right to the camera. Is that a good shot? Okay. If you will.
Sure. This first medal is the one I'm most proud of, and that is the Naval Marine Corps Commendation with a Combat V. That was for Operation County Fair, Hill 55 in Vietnam in 1966. The next medal is a good conduct. The next medal is the Marine Expeditionary Medal. This is the Vietnam Service Medal, National Defense Medal, Vietnam Service Medal. This medal is a medal that we received from the Republic of Vietnam for service there. This is the Combat Service Medal. This is a medal from Vietnam, also a medal, a distinctive service medal in Vietnam, and the last one is the Marine Corps Commendation Medal.
Beautiful. And how about these little guys right down here in the corner?
Well, this was my rank when I was discharged. I was a sergeant, and it says Sergeant Richard S. Stockwell, Headquarters Company, 9th Marines, Vietnam, 1965-1966.
Beautiful. We thank you, sir. Now, if you will, we kind of put this to one side. But
Sure.
When you finally got home after your tour, what kind of a reception did you get?
It was very quiet. There wasn't not a lot of fanfare. There was an organization of women in my hometown that had sent me some clothes while I was in Vietnam, because there was an orphanage that were run by Catholic nuns.
Oh, you was giving it to the kids. I thought
And we were
getting a new uniform.
Well, I had wrote my mother and asked her if there was any clothes that could be sent, if she could find any
Beautiful.
clothes. My mother was a nurse, some clothes, because this orphanage, they really didn't have any clothes for these kids, and it was like 30, 35. And so they had this civic organization in the town that was women, that it was like the Red Hat women that you.
Oh, yeah.
But they were similar to that. And so my mother talked to a couple of them, and all of a sudden, boxes and boxes of clothes came to this orphanage.
Beautiful.
So I went to speak to them when I got home. When I got home in September, and I had to go to, because my grandfather had passed away, and I was supposed to come home September 15th, and he passed away on the 6th, so they flew me out early. And I got orders to be home for 2 weeks and then go to down to Camp Lejeune to get discharged. So I went home, and I was late for my grandfather's funeral. He had been buried the day before I got there. And then I was welcomed warmly for the people who knew me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like guys coming home from Iraq now. You know, I've seen, I work for the Red Cross now, and we have we have a service organization up there, support group. And, I've seen guys come into, I was in Spice the other night, not that I'm giving a commercial, I was in Spice the other night, and this Army guy came in and sat down, and I could tell the way he was tanned, and his hair, and the way, and he said he had been back from Iraq for 2 weeks on leave, and he was going back.
Ooh.
So we sat there and had a couple beers together and exchanged war stories. And he was warmly received. Congratulations. And it's too bad you have to go back. And I want to go back. He was very positive, and the conversation grew at the bar, and the atmosphere was different than when I came home.
Yeah, that's been, I think, a bee in somebody's bonnet for a long time, because it was a thing that no one seemed to want to talk about. Yet you guys went out in the bush.
You get choked up. I get choked up even today. I'll run into somebody. I'll be wearing this, or I wear my pin in my lapel, and somebody will say to me something, or my Marine Corps ring, and to have somebody 35 years later say, "Welcome home."
Yeah.
And guys still do that today.
I know.
Because we never were welcome home.
You never, and that's the bad part.
Yeah.
That's the sad part.
But you accept it, and you move on.
Yeah.
I did what I thought was right, and I still do.
Yeah. Amen.
And nobody's will ever change my mind.
Yeah. To that point, now, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
sure.
From what you learned and did back in the service, how much of it have you been able to, if you will, apply to your job, or what you're now doing as a volunteer? Did it help?
I think it helped me. Well, when I got out of the service, I didn't know what I was going to do, and so I come out and I worked for a while. I worked for Mass Electric.
As a cook?
No. I was doing some. I was working in Westboro, Mass. I was living at home, and it was kind of a real culture shock to come home after 4.5 years and to live on the farm. And so I got a job, and I wasn't adjusting well at all. And so I took the test for the state police. And in 1967, I got accepted to the Massachusetts State Police Academy in Framingham. And I went to the academy, and my roommate at the academy was named Edward Sullivan, because they put you in two to a room, and they did an alphabetical order. So they Stockwell, Sullivan, yeah, right, So, unbeknownst to me, he was from Canton, Mass. He and I were in Vietnam at the same time in the same outfit in the 9th Marines.
Wow, that's coincidental.
And now we're roommates.
Okay.
And we graduate, and we become buddies. I take him home a weekend. He takes me home. He ended up marrying my sister.
Wow.
So I graduated, and I was assigned to the State Police Barracks in Shelburne Falls, Mass. Now, I didn't even know what Shelburne Falls was.
But you made it.
Because back then, you lived in the barracks.
Okay. 24 on, 24 off?
Well, no, you were 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off. So I went to Shelburne Falls, and Eddie got stationed in Grafton, which is the barracks next to my hometown. And those days, they didn't keep you close to home. They sent you far away because they didn't want you to know anybody. So I came out to Shelburne, and I was at Shelburne for 6 years. And I met my wife-to-be. I had arrested her cousin.
Good start, buddy. Good start.
And she came to the barracks to bail him out. She had just graduated from Bates. And she was home in May, and she came down to bail her cousin out. And so we got to talking, and we ran into each other at an establishment that night. I was working 8 to 4. A couple of troopers we went out after, and she was in there with her cousin and a few other friends, and we got talking. And when I asked her out, one thing led to another, and a year later we were married.
Good. Still married?
No, I'm divorced.
Oh.
I have two children. I have Jennifer, who is an RN, who I'm very proud of, who just got accepted to the University of Mass Medical School, where she is getting her master's and will be a nurse practitioner.
Beautiful.
And my son works for the Bose Corporation. He lives in Florida. In fact, he was here this weekend. He works for the Bose Corporation, and he's married and I have a granddaughter, and he lives in Port St. Lucie, Florida.
Oh.
And he is a former Marine. After all the talking I did to him, he still went in.
Yeah, well, you know.
And I went down to his graduation 30 years after I was there, and my heart started beating real fast when I went across that bridge, because it brought back a lot of memories.
Oh yeah.
So, but Rick was in, and he did 2 years, and then he went into the reserves, and he was really, really, really. He did a good job while he was in.
Good deal.
So.
So the course got its hooks in you guys, huh?
Yeah, it got the hooks in, and then because we had two small children, and my wife was a school teacher at the time, and living in the barracks, they would put a lot of stress on the family, and so I decided to leave the state police.
Okay.
And the only thing I really knew how to do was to cook. So we were living out here, and I went to work at the Springs in New Ashford.
Oh, way back, yeah.
For Ed Grasso.
Yeah, yeah.
And I worked there until it burnt down. And then I worked for Abe and Sarah Wolf at the Log Cabin in Lenox.
Remember their big salad bowls?
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
So, and I got a lot of good training in that type of restaurant business, and then I worked at Berkshire Medical Center for 9 years as the head chef there, and then I went to Williamstown and became a food service director at a private school in Williamstown, and I was there for 8 years until they closed the school. Well, like every cook's dream, you want to own your own place. Mm-hmm. So in 1996, I had the opportunity to open my own restaurant. And I opened, with my business partner, the Shamrock Restaurant and Pub in Dalton.
Oh, right around the corner.
And we were there from 96 to 2002. And became very successful there. Sometimes the old saying is, be careful what you wish for.
Because you may get it.
Because you may get it. Well, I wanted a successful restaurant, and we worked hard. The first year was a real struggle for us, but we worked hard. We were determined to make a go of it, and we did, and it was kind of like a real family place in Dalton. It was kind of a meeting place, and so we sold it in 2002, and I retired early, which was a mistake. So I had an opportunity to go to work for the Red Cross, and I worked part-time for the Red Cross, and I volunteer. And I work and volunteer. And so I've been there for 4 years now, and I really like it. I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. I had the opportunity 2 years ago when Katrina hit the Gulf Coast. Our disaster director come out and said that they put an emergency call out for former service people to go down there to be the first ones in. So I'll go.
Okay. You broke the rule.
I broke the rule. I volunteered. So I got on a plane with Sylvia Burnell 5 days after the storm, and we went to Gulfport, Mississippi.
The home of the Seabees.
We stayed at a CB base, and we were in Biloxi and Base St. Louis and the Gulfport, and I have not seen destruction like that since Vietnam.
I know. And have they done anything about it?
I don't know.
That's the bad part, the big question mark.
I want to go back. I really want to go back. I've had friends that go back to Vietnam and, you know, take a tour of Vietnam. I don't really care to do that, but I would really like to go back to Gulfport, and I'd like to go to Biloxi and Base St. Louis. You know, as I said, you know, I don't know how those people
can cope.
It's amazing. And the thing about it, you know, you can't put blame on anybody, Bob. You can, but there's enough blame to go around for everybody.
Everybody's got a pocket full.
Absolutely. You know, from the local people in charge, the state people, the federal people. I mean, it was a fiasco. And you know, you can't say, how can this happen in the United States of America? Yeah. You know, they could have mobilized half the country and gone down there and straightened out. And there are still people down there that are without.
I know.
You know, and I spent 3 weeks down there. And one thing I found out that I'm not 22 anymore. Yeah. Sleeping on those cots.
They're too short or they're too light.
I think they weren't wide enough. But I'm glad I went. It was very satisfying, but that was just an amazing.
Well, do they still have any sort of a volunteer camaraderie? You can go down there and, like, we've had some of the guys from the church go down and Habitat for Humanity, helping that kind of stuff. And they've said the same thing you did. The desolation is horrible, but the spirit of the people, they're still there, they're still struggling, they're still hoping to come out of it.
And when you talk about service people, Biloxi, Gulfport, Base St. Louis, Mobile, Alabama, there are numerous veterans that live there. I'm talking about servicemen.
Yeah. And
you never heard anything in the newspaper about this, but I found out that when I got there, is that all communications were cut off. All these guys are in Iraq, Kuwait, and Afghanistan, and they're hearing in emails and computers and things, the news, how bad it is there, how much the homes have been destroyed. The Air Force base in Biloxi, the hospital was torn down. There was nothing there. And these guys, the morale over there, they couldn't find out how their families were.
Bucket 6.
There was no communication, you know, and they're over there fighting a war, and they don't know how their wives and kids are doing that are in Biloxi, Mississippi, on an Air Force base. It was, you know, and I really felt bad for some of these military families down there that they couldn't tell their husband or wife, whoever was overseas in Iraq, that they're okay. The house is gone, but we're okay.
Okay. Well, if you take an old goat, maybe sometime we can get on together, because I was stationed at Gulfport, and you know the area.
I was at that, the CB base that you were at is where we stayed.
Yeah.
And there was a group of Marines down there. They were engineers, and we were staying in this lodge where they used to put tanks and things, and it was like a huge warehouse.
Yeah, big Butler buildings.
Yeah, and there were 600 of us, Red Cross volunteers in one room. That's how big it was.
That's a lot of help.
The Marines were next door to us, and I had a Marine T-shirt on, and we had 16 showers for 350 guys. So you had to wait a lot of.
The tail end Charlie never got any hot water.
True. But anyways, the captain that was in charge of the Marines there, when he saw my shirt, we were eating, and he come over and asked me the next night if I would join his Marines for dinner.
Oh, beautiful.
And so, you know, we sat and told stories, and because the captain wasn't born when I was in Vietnam.
Yeah.
That makes you feel old.
Hey. But best part about it, though, buddy, you're here to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think this is a great thing that you're doing, is and the Library of Congress is to have veterans coming in and tell what they did and what their story. So, you know, future generations will know.
That's what we're trying to do. Okay. Well, all I can say is thank you, my boy.
Bob,
and
it's
you've
been
done
a pleasure.
Great job. And if you do go down there, maybe someday I could go with you.
Love to have you.
Amen.
Love to have you.
That's about it for now, folks. We thank you for watching and hope that it'll be of value and interest to you. But more important, for some of you guys that are still on the edge, please, if you will and can, share your experiences with us. We're here to help. We'll do all we can, including the people you don't see in back of the cameras. Everybody here is volunteering to make sure that we fill in that little thing called the blank spots in history. Again, if you'd like to join us, we'll tell you how to get here, how to call us, and so on. And we'll do all we can to make it worth your while to help share the world with others. Again, Bob Stevens saying thank you for listening and have a good life.